This week on Talking Pictures with Neil Rosen, we'll look at the new film Fly Me to the Moon, starring Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson. The sequel to the tornado movie Twister, called Twisters, a new documentary about Oscar-winning actress Faye Dunaway, called Faye, and a new comedy, The Fabulous Four, starring Bette Midler and Susan Sarandon. We've got all that and many more movie picks coming up. I'm Neil Rosen, and welcome to Talking Pictures. It's our monthly Critic Roundtable show. We debate what's worth watching and what's not when it comes to new releases, hidden gems, and Hollywood classics. Joining me are Bill McCuddy from GoldDerby.com, Edward Douglas from Cinema Daily US, and Roger Friedman from Showbiz 411. Let's start out with a look at several new films or series in theaters and or streaming, beginning with Fly Me to the Moon. Let's take a look at a clip.
Omega.
Look, this isn't Madison Avenue. We don't pay for this stuff.
No, it's cost-free. The brands get a tie-in money can't buy, and NASA works its way into the minds of everyday people.
A watch ad. That's your big idea?
Ready? Toothpaste. Tang. The energy breakfast drink chosen for Apollo astronauts on their trip to the moon.
Moon coupons.
But my personal favorite? Fruit of the Loom, right? The guys got to wear something under those big suits, don't they?
NASA, like Fruit of the Loom. Look, I am not turning this ship into a flying billboard, no matter how much you want it to happen. And, by the way, we don't have time to test all this before liftoff.
We don't have to send any of this up into space as long as we say it went.
Oh, so you're gonna lie?
It's called selling. We're not lying to the customer. We're changing the way they think.
No, it's called lying.
Bill, talk about Fly Me to the Moon.
Neil, we've got your back. Hashtag inside joke. Here's what it's all about. Fly Me to the Moon has taken the idea of all of the Apollo 11 conspiracy theories and decided to lean into romantic comedy. So we have Scarlett Johansson as a marketing maven who's been hired by NASA to actually stage a fake landing just in case something goes wrong with the real one. She's hooked up with Channing Tatum, who's the launch director, and hilarity ensues. Hilarity ensues as long as you're Scarlett Johansson, who seems to have most of the funny lines in this movie, despite a supporting cast of people like Ray Romano, Woody Harrelson, and her husband from Saturday Night Live, Colin Jost, who's kind of a cameo in the dark, and I
For
don't
like
know.
30 seconds.
That was a favor, I guess, they decided to do. It's entertaining. I'm sorry it didn't make a whole lot more money at the theaters, but I think it will stream very shortly, and that's where you should take this trip to the moon.
Yeah, I saw this movie about a month ago with a real audience, and it played so well that it's just so disappointing that it was released, kind of just dumped in the middle of summer, because it could have done better if it really had a better release date. But I really liked it. Jim Rash is amazing. He plays a director who kind of fakes the moon landing, and like everything comes out of his mouth is hilarious. He's definitely the funniest part of the movie.
Yeah.
Roger?
You know, I'll see anything with Scarlett Johansson. She could be in a period piece. She could be in a science fiction movie. She's just terrific. I'm sorry it didn't do better in the box office either, but I think it'll be very popular at home.
I guess we're all recommending it is what we should tell people at home as when it comes to streaming.
I wouldn't say I was over the moon for this film, but I do really recommend the movie.
We don't edit this show or that would have come out.
Look, I think the premise is a real good one. As you said, with all the different conspiracy theories, they did something like, with that and focused on one. I think it was funny. I think Scarlett Johansson, as you also said, has the best lines. I think Woody Harrelson steals every scene that he's in. I love Woody.
That's not new, though.
He's the villain, but yet you still kind of like the guy because he's Woody and he's very charismatic. And Scarlett Johansson, she's a con artist. I mean, I like when she plays a Southern belle to try to get this Southern senator to fund NASA. I like in the beginning when she's like in the Mad Men era and she's like working for the ad agency that does Ford cars, and she's coming up with all these crazy ideas. I think it's a good ride, It'll be streaming on PVOD very shortly. As you said, it didn't do well in the theaters, but I think it's going to do very well on pay-per-view and then streaming after that. And I say check it out. It's quite good. And the romantic angle is good also. So the next movie up is a film called Sing Sing, which Ed saw, but the three of us did not, and he's going to tell us about it, and then we're going to ask him some questions about it. So take it away, Ed.
Well, you'll just have to trust me, but you're going to be hearing about Sing Sing for the rest of the year, into next year for the Oscars. He is definitely a player. It stars Coleman Domingo, who just got an Oscar nomination a few months ago, for Rustin. He plays a incarcerated man named Divine G, who's in the Sing Sing Correctional Facility. He is part of this theater troupe known as Rehabilitation Through the Arts, or RTA, and they're basically putting on a show every season where the people in the prison
Do you play?
participate. And the main story involves him and this younger guy, played by Clarence Macklin, who is a former Sing Sing inmate. I want to say inmate. They don't like that word, but he basically was part of that program. It's actually based on his involvement with this.
So this is a true story.
It's based on a true story. It's based on a real play, an original play put on at Sing Sing, and most of the cast are not actors besides Coleman Domingo, Paul Racy from Sound of Metal, and one other guy who's like a theater guy. Everyone else was either in the program or at Sing Sing or still at Sing Sing, and they're amazing. You watch this movie and you're blown away by.
Were you blown away by it?
I absolutely was. It's a very powerful movie. I mean, just the interactions between it. It's like a big flashy movie. It's very about human interactions. People who like theater will enjoy it. I think it's going to be a real big. I think Coleman Domingo might actually win the Oscar for it, but he's definitely going to get nominated again.
Well, let me follow up on that because
Sure.
this is the year for him to do that, and this is how the Academy thinks and does things. He should have won for Rustin last year, in my opinion, but he didn't, and it was really good. This I've been hearing nothing but great things about from everyone who's seen it, including you. So I think we are seeing something very early in the year now that will make a big splash at the end, and that's kind of cool. I can't wait to see it.
The Fabulous Four is a new comedy about four lifelong friends who reunite for a weekend of fun in Key West, Florida. Let's take a look at a clip.
I don't think you should be doing this. Lean in, lean in. I want to make a video.
I got myself an obsession.
Come on, Alice. Open the box.
Will you be my
Bridesmaid.
What? John died just 2 months ago, so she got out there kind of quick.
Takes longer to cancel a gym membership.
Cause you gave me all I've been.
Why was Lou so mad at you? You stole her man?
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. Back in the day.
I couldn't make a bed, but I could break a bed.
Roger, take it away.
All right, you've seen the book club movies, I'm sure.
Yes, I have.
And there were two of them, and several others like them. This is the paperback version of the book club movies. It's time to stop making these movies about four, wonderful actresses who reunite and have to overcome problems in their friendship. And that's what this story is about. Bette Midler is the main character, and she and Susan Sarandon have a long-running feud about a past romantic connection. One of them stole the other one's husband. And then they're in their 70s, and they're great. But they're best friends somehow with Cheryl Lee Ralph and Megan Mullally from Will and Grace, who are, 13 years younger. So when possibly could they have all been together and reunited? But anyway, they are all together, and these are four really good actresses who are looking for a screenplay. And the screenplay gets worse and worse as time goes by. They go to Key West because Bette Midler is going to get married. And then there's a little plot twist with an actor who I really like, who's also way too young for Bette and Susan, Bruce Greenwood. And he has really no story, except something's revealed about him a short way through the film, and then you think, oh, now they've hit on something. Now we'll have a story, but then they just decide not to do that story. And the whole thing is a mess. But Bette and Cheryl Lee Ralph sing at the end of it, and believe me, it's worth sitting through the whole movie just to hear them
I
sing.
thought that was one of the saddest parts.
I love their singing.
Yeah, look, you're right. This is like they couldn't get tickets to the Super Bowl, so this is the other thing for four older women to go up and do. And you're right. Bruce Greenwood is like Jesus on a bicycle, and I didn't understand really what he was introduced as perhaps a love interest, and then the big ending, the big song at the ending, I was just like, oh no, you haven't gone that far.
Well, they
with
had
this,
no
but they
nothing.
had.
There's nothing left to do.
Imagine
So
a
there's
movie
time
that
for singing.
Lifetime said, it's not good enough for us.
Yeah, I've seen so many movies like this recently, and I agree with Roger. They've done too many of them. It's embarrassing for these great actresses who've done so many. They've won Oscars, And then they go do a movie like this, and it's like one of the worst parts of the movie is one of them, Susan Sarandon, takes edibles, and there's a whole scene of them on drugs.
There's always a scene of that.
I know, there's always a scene of them doing drugs.
There's always a scene of one of the older actresses getting stoned by accident.
Yeah, and it's not funny. It's never funny.
No.
But they think it's funny, and they put it in there. There was a movie called Summer Camp, which just came out. It was almost the exact same movie with Diane Keaton. And it's like, why? I mean, someone needs to call these agents and say,
it's funny because
you're not doing your clients any favors.
The British knew how to do it because they did the best exotic Marigold Hotel, and they used
Yes,
all older
that's a
stars.
great example.
But they had a great story.
We don't have any scriptwriters. All these great actresses are not getting good
Here's what I don't
material.
get.
Don't you agree, Neil?
Yes. First of all, it plays like a bad sitcom. It really does. And, these actresses are, high caliber actresses. I mean, don't their agents or don't they read the script and go like, originally Sissy Spacek was supposed to be in it and she dropped out. So
well, she dropped out for a good reason.
She's smart.
But, how does a movie like this get, there's so few comedies made these days, okay? And it's kind of sad that this is the comedy that gets made. Because,
So we're saying unfabulous to these four and pass.
But what is the audience for this? I mean, how is this going to,
Hopefully no one.
I mean, they assume
Hopefully nothing.
They assume it's older women, so we're not really the audience. But I've seen a ton of commercials for it during daytime television because they know that that's the people who are going to see and say, hey, that looks funny.
Next up is a new documentary all about Faye Dunaway called Faye. I really liked it, and I'll tell you why later, but I'm going to have Bill McCuddy tell you all about it right now.
Yeah, this is a doc, as you mentioned, about the great iconic actress Faye Dunaway, and it ties her off-screen persona into her screen performances and leaves almost no stone unturned. And in fact, from the very beginning of this film, she is asking to move the lights around. I don't like the way I'm seated. And you're set up for someone who had a reputation through her whole career and to this day of being a little hard to get along with. So we do a deep dive into things like Network and all of the other great films she's been in, Chinatown. Network, by the way, my favorite all-time movie. It used to be Raging Bull, and Network kind of, because it was a precursor to the Fox News Channel, is kind of sort of my new favorite. Patty Chayefsky's great work. We learn a lot, but we don't learn everything. And one of the things I would say, and I'm recommending this film highly, is that I wish we'd had a little more dish in the dish. We know for a fact that Roman Polanski gave her a really hard time during the making of Chinatown, refusing to let her go to the bathroom and all these other terroristic kind of tactics, and she doesn't deal with all of that right up front. She was married to a famous photographer, Terry Quinn, and that iconic shot of her after she won the Oscar in 1977 of her took 15 minutes. They took it like in 10 different positions, and then they were done at dawn at the Beverly Hills Hotel. It's all worth seeing. I just wish there'd been a little more meat on the bone, but other than that, Faye is great.
The great tragedy of Faye Dunaway is Mommy Dearest.
Well, they deal with that.
And when she made Mommy Dearest, she was at the height of her career, and unfortunately, I'm old enough to remember I was there when it happened, and she had made Chinatown and all these great movies, Bonnie and Clyde. She won the Oscar. She won
for Network.
She won for Network. She was as hot as a pistol, and then she made this terrible choice, which is discussed pretty thoroughly in the movie. But once for some reason, the way that hit, she was finished. She was just completely finished, and she never recovered from it.
You would say to this day, really?
She never recovered from it.
I don't know.
They tried to there was one instance, I can remember this, when Barfly came out, and it was 5 years later, and people thought, well, maybe this will be it, but it didn't happen. And then
that was a small film, and Mickey Rourke is in this doc talking about it.
Yes, and he looks absolutely bizarre.
Yeah.
But it was the thing with Mommy Dearest, which is they talk about, as you said extensively in the film, is that one of the actresses in the film says she just bought a ticket and went to see the movie when it first came out.
Yeah.
And everybody's laughing in the theater. And when they made the movie, they were not going for campiness. Well, but it's kind of become a kind of a cult classic.
Yeah, Faye says, I could have been dialed back.
Yeah, she says that.
They don't discuss.
Everybody's blaming the director.
Well, the director, Frank Perry, was to blame. He wasn't a great director. He was a schlock director. And that was the big problem. It was mishandled all the way through from beginning to end.
But you go ahead, I'm sorry.
And so, no, it's a tragedy because soon after that, she was making a sitcom with Robert Urich, and that was ridiculous.
But that's that's a small portion of the film. I mean, the film, which I love, talks about, I mean, from her childhood, her Southern childhood,
Yes.
you know, and then being on Broadway, which I was not aware of that career, and then becoming a star on Bonnie and Clyde, and it goes through pretty much every film that she's made, and she's, first of all, she's a great actress.
She's a great actress.
I like the fact that it's a warts and all documentary, that it talks about her mental bipolar disorder, and the fact that she is difficult, as you said, Bill, on set, you know, and I love this scene right in the beginning when Betty Davis is on Johnny Carson and says, what's the one person you'll never work with again? And Betty Davis goes, if they paid me $1 million, I'll never work with Faye Dunaway again.
Right.
And since Faye Dunaway was, you know, this movie was made with her consent.
Although people said that about Betty Davis, too.
Right.
Yeah,
Betty's
but
no walk
the
in the
fact
park.
that Faye Dunaway, you know, is interviewed and she agreed to have that clip in there. She's very, you know, open about the fact that I'm.
And she has friends. Sharon Stone is in this thing too. We should mention and speaks very highly of her.
A lot of people are in the film. Yeah. And
I recommend it. What about you?
Yeah, I recommend it. And you know, if you look at all these films over the years, she's so glamorous. She's beautiful. I mean, and she's one of the remaining last movie stars. I mean, there's not a lot of movie stars today. You could just, but she's a legend. We all liked it. We all recommend it. Ed?
Yeah, I liked it. I was very impressed by it. I am the baby of this group, obviously, so I didn't get to see many of the movies in theaters or her movies in the 70s. I saw a lot of them since then, not all of them. I was impressed. I also liked the fact the director included her adopted son Liam very much in the movie. Because, you know, you think about Mommy Dearest, you think about Faye Dunaway, and she's actually a really good mother. I mean, she loves this kid.
A great kid, too.
Great kid. So that was one of my highlights of the movie, is getting to see her son really participate a lot.
But fun fact, Liam never had wire hangers.
Get in the car! Watch your step! All right, we gotta move faster!
That was a clip from the new movie Twisters, which is a reboot to the popular 1996 movie Twister. Now, Twister happens to be Bill McCuddy's personal choice. As we go around the panel with our Critics' Picks of the Month, we will also talk about Twisters, the new one, as well. Bill.
So Twisters is kind of a respin, if you want to call it that, because it's basically the same idea. What if we took a lot of CGI and showed what the state of the art is? And in 1996, the state of the art, with Jan de Bont directing, and no less than Michael Crichton as one of the screenwriters, you have a pretty decent movie starring Helen Hunt, Bill Paxton, Cary Elwes, and Jamie Gertz, along with, sadly, one of the very first things that Philip Seymour Hoffman was in. And yes, I was going to mention it, but you did, and that's why I wore cows on my socks today from Warhol. Yes, it was a flying cow. These were really, really big effects in 1996, and it came out in May. It was the first time a summer blockbuster actually was introduced before the summer, so it paved the way for all these other films. Is it as good as the new Twisters? I don't think so, but it's a fun little throwback, and it's worth going to see. Well, not going anywhere. You're going to rent it or find it on demand somewhere. It opened, by the way, in 1996 with $41 million for its opening weekend, which in these days money would be $80 million, and that's exactly what Twisters opened with. So they are very much on par to do the same kind of business, and I'm not surprised. It's a lot of fun.
So 28 years ago, the original one came out, and a lot of people, young people, probably aren't even familiar with that particular film. You think this? You'd still go with the original? You'd go with the original Twister?
No, I think they're an interesting companion. I think it's fun to go back and see the original one. Obviously, the special effects are much, much better now in today
but the
than they
story
were then.
I think is better in the
Yeah,
in
I
the
think the
original
story
one.
in 1996 was stronger than what we have here. The one, I'm not giving too much away, but the end of Twisters has everybody up in arms over the love story. So, you know, there's obviously...
Now, if we were on Fernwood tonight, I would ask you, what happened to the cow?
Well, by the way, no cows were harmed in the making of either film.
Well, I love Daisy Edgar Jones in the new one. I love Just Since Normal People, that limited series. And Glenn Powell from Hitman, who's in this, he's going to be a huge star.
He's a huge star.
And, you know, the special effects, as you said, are better in the new one, but I think the screenplay is better in the original one. Roger, what's your pick this month?
My pick is a documentary that will be on Netflix by the time this airs, and it's called Skywalkers, A Love Story. And it's just a terrific documentary about two young people who live in Russia, and they are part of a group of people called rooftoppers. They climb to the top of skyscrapers all over Eastern Europe, and they get up on the top. They have no nets. They have nothing to protect them if they fall.
The flying will end it.
They don't care. They get to the top of these things. They they bring a drone to the top. The drones are only this big. They bring the drone to the top. The drone goes around and takes this incredible footage of them while they're performing acrobatics and things on the top of the buildings. And it's very exciting. And when they get to the final segment is climbing this skyscraper in Kuala Lumpur, and they are very smart. They do it at the same time that the World Cup is going on, so that they say all the security guards will be watching the World Cup and no one will pay attention to them as they go up through this skyscraper and get on top of it. And it's very exciting.
Ed?
Yeah, this is a really good movie. It played at Sundance really well. People loved it. Jeffrey Zimbalist is an amazing director. He's made movies about Pelé. He's made movies about the Two Escobars. He's a really good director. I mean, this I think movie. I think I'd like to see it in a theater, although I didn't get a chance.
You have to see it in the theater.
Yeah, I know.
Because it should be in IMAX.
Well, they did do it IMAX, but not in New York. But I enjoyed it.
It is the action-adventure movie of the summer.
Oh, it is.
It's got a romance story that's completely legitimate. He was climbing and she was climbing, and he got a hold of her and offers her nothing to come with him and climb together.
Yeah.
She gets introduced to the world of how people like sponsors will pay for these photographs, and this is the important thing. Her parents came from the circus. She knows how to put on a show, and she brought art to it and made it an art form. One of my highest recommendations, I will say the way you are going to see it is on Netflix, and that's going to be okay. If you have a big enough screen at home and can't get to an IMAX theater,
don't watch it on a phone.
see it because you can't see it any other way.
Ed, what's your pick?
Yeah, my pick is a movie called Didi, which also played at Sundance, also did really well. It actually won the audience award. It's directed by Sean Wang. It's a coming-of-age film about a 13-year-old in California in 2008. And it stars Joan Chen as his mother. And Joan Chen is an amazingly underrated Chinese actress. She's doing this great role in that. But it's a coming-of-age film, and it reminded me of Bo Burnham's 8th Grade, which came out a few years ago. It was at Sundance. And it's really, it's amazing that I could watch a movie like this. I mean, I was his age in like the 70s, and I could watch a movie like this and I could relate to him, even though I literally have almost nothing in common. There's, you would think in 2008, kids are different, things are different. Exactly the same. You see girls you like, you want to impress them. You see older kids you want to hang out with. It's a great film. It deserved the audience award. It'll be rolling out over August in hopefully fairly nationwide.
My pick is a movie from over 20 years ago called The Magdalene Sisters. It was my best movie of the year back in 2002 when it came out. And the reason I'm telling you about it now is that this little-known film is streaming on many platforms. The women's rights issues that it deals with has a lot of relevance today, and it deserves to be seen. It takes place in Ireland in 1964, where 3 teenage girls who were considered fallen women are sent to these asylums run by the church. They're called the Magdalene Laundries, where they're treated as slaves for their entire lives. One girl is sentenced there because she flirted with a boy at school, another because she got pregnant out of wedlock, and the third because she was raped by a family member. At this isolated institution, the girls are subjected to daily hard labor, supervised by extremely cruel nuns. It was written and directed by Peter Mullen. The stories are based on real-life recollections of many actual women who spent time there. The actresses who portray these women are exceptional, and it's an eye-opening history lesson. First part plays like a real-life horror story, and the second half is like The Great Escape, as the 3 girls try to figure out a way to bust out of this horrific place. These laundries in Ireland existed from the late 19th century up until, believe it or not, as recently as into the 1990s. The Magdalene Sisters, check it out. Bill, you remember the movie, don't you?
Yeah, it's great. It wasn't my favorite movie that year, but it is really, really exceptional, and it holds up.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I remember seeing this movie. I remember being really impressed with Peter Mullen as a director. I love him as an actor. One of the interesting things is that if you saw this Sinead O'Connor doc from a few years ago, she was in that system, and that kind of what she was.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah, that's it. And she was that's probably what she was been fighting about for all that time. But that's a great movie. I mean, it's a good pick.
This is one of those gems. I'm thinking of Local Hero and movies like that we don't really have anymore, done by a real auteur. And something that I'm glad you picked it. I'm glad you brought it back.
Before we go, Roger Friedman has a story. He saw Deadpool and Wolverine, And
by the time our show airs, this movie will have already made about $200 million. It is the ultimate Marvel movie if you're a Marvel fan. There's actually even a mention of Batman in it. It's the Mad Magazine version of a Marvel movie. It has absolutely nothing to do with the previous Deadpool movies or really almost anything to do with Wolverine. But it's about Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman just having a total goof. It's sort of like Bob Hope and Bing Crosby on the road, you know, and there's like big set pieces that look like Mad Max that have nothing to do with anything. There's 15 cameos from people you don't expect to see and didn't really want to see again. It just keeps sending itself up. There's jokes about the actors' divorces and home life.
And the fans will like this? They won't find it disrespectful in that universe?
They break the fourth wall. It's just like Mad Magazine's movie parodies. They break the fourth wall. They break the fifth wall. It's absolutely insane.
Did you like it better than the original Deadpool movie?
No, I really like the Deadpool movies a lot, and they're much better than this. But this is
you love this.
But this is a total entertainment for the summer. It's a total entertainment. And if you're into this, and you're into the Marvel Universe, which we know is very popular, all of it, the entire Marvel Universe, especially X-Men, is completely revisited in this movie.
Well, that's about all the time that we have. I want to thank Bill McCuddy, Edward Douglas, and Roger Friedman. I'm Neil Rosen. Join us next time on Talking Pictures.